Good afternoon, I'm Brian Reagan, this is
Tyler Kelly.
And welcome to our midday meditation. Today we're in Nehemiah chapter 11 verses 1 and 2.
Now the leaders of the people dwelled at Jerusalem. The rest of the people cast lots to bring 1 out of 10 to dwell in Jerusalem, the holy city, and 9/10 were to dwell in other cities. And the people blessed all the men who willingly offered themselves to dwell at Jerusalem.
All right. So, Jerusalem being the capital city, being the trade city, the place of government, the place of commerce, the place of the temple, Jerusalem was the heart of Israel. And when they came back, as the people went to their ancestral lands in as much as they could. And so what that left for Jerusalem was not a lot, because remember, Jeremiah had told the people, he said, just walk out and surrender to Nebuchadnezzar. And he said, otherwise, if you don't, he said, Nebuchadnezzar is going to kill pretty much all of you. And for the most part, most of the inhabitants of Jerusalem were destroyed with Nebuchadnezzar at that time. So even while they're in the captivity, it's not the inhabitants of Jerusalem, it was the inhabitants of Judah and Benjamin was the majority of the population. And then the remnant of the northern 10 tribes. That's what went to Babylon. What was left in the land was just enough to keep the cities from being overrun by wild animals. That's pretty much all Nebuchadnezzar left. But he killed a huge chunk of the inhabitants of Jerusalem. So when they go back to rebuild, the people who live out in the country on the ancestral lands, they have to get volunteers if they're going to rebuild Jerusalem and keep it strong. Because the people came together to rebuild the walls. People have come together to rebuild the temple. But then they all want to go back home. None of them want to stay in the city. And the people who live in the city aren't enough people to protect it and the temple. And so what you have here, and this is one of those little things that I've talked about, that the fact that it says the people blessed the ones who wanted to go to Jerusalem to inhabit it. Because most of these folks, they didn't want to leave the ancestral lands. They didn't want to leave living in the country. You know, if you had a nice home in the Catskills in upstate New York, and someone says, we need you to come and help live in Manhattan to rebuild it. And you have to give up your beautiful change of color when autumn comes. The Catskills are absolutely gorgeous in the fall, right? Or maybe, you know, you live in the redwoods of Northern California, and they say, we need to rebuild Los Angeles. Well, wow, I'm going to give up my giant redwoods for LA. And so the people blessed the ones who were willing to go and re-inhabit Jerusalem, to rebuild it, to rebuild the commerce, the security, the everything. So just one of those little things historically, Tyler. Anything you want to add?
No, sir.
All right, with that, I'm Brian Reagan. This is
Tyler Kelly.
We bid you good afternoon.